Have you ever questioned the rationality of your belief in God or in other minds? This inquiry sets the stage for our exploration of Alvin Plantinga's groundbreaking work, God and Other Minds. In this seminal book, Plantinga draws a fascinating parallel between the belief in God and the belief in other minds. Just like we accept the existence of other minds despite the lack of direct empirical evidence, he argues, we can also rationally justify our belief in God. In challenging the assumption that only beliefs backed by empirical evidence or logical arguments are rationally justified, Plantinga raises an intriguing question. If we were to reject God due to a lack of direct empirical evidence, wouldn't we also have to reject the existence of other minds for the same reason? A move that would plunge us into a radical and unsustainable skepticism about the world around us. Does the absence of empirical evidence necessarily invalidate a belief? Let's dive deeper into this thought. In the first part of his book, Plantinga scrutinizes arguments for the existence of God. He focuses primarily on two main arguments, the ontological argument and the design argument. Let's take a closer look at these. The ontological argument is a philosophical proposition that posits God's existence is intrinsically logical. Its proponents argue that God, being the greatest conceivable being, must exist, for existence is a necessary attribute of greatness. However, critics often counter this argument by questioning its basic premise. Is existence truly a predicate or characteristic that can be attributed to a concept? Then we have the design argument, also known as the teleological argument. This argument is rooted in the observable order and complexity of the universe. It suggests that such order and complexity could not have come about by mere chance, hence implying the existence of a designer, an architect of the cosmos. Yet this argument too is not without its critics. Some argue that the apparent design could be a result of natural processes such as evolution, and not necessarily indicative of a divine designer. Plantinga, in his examination, acknowledges that while these arguments may not definitively prove the existence of God, they offer a rational basis for theistic belief. He argues that the ontological and design arguments, despite their critics, present compelling cases that make belief in God rationally justifiable. In other words, one doesn't need to abandon reason to believe in God. These arguments provide a logical foundation for such a belief, even if they don't offer irrefutable empirical proof. So we see that belief in God is not irrational, it's grounded in logical arguments that, while not definitive, offer a rational justification for theistic belief. But what about belief in other minds? Is it also rationally justifiable to believe that others have conscious states similar to our own, even though we can't directly observe them? Can we draw an analogy between this belief and belief in God? Let's explore this next. In the second part of his book, Plantinga draws a fascinating analogy between believing in God and believing in other minds. This analogy invites us to consider our beliefs in a new light. Both beliefs, he posits, are fundamental to our understanding of the world. Yet they're not based on direct empirical evidence. Instead, they are born out of certain observable experiences and behaviors. Let's delve a bit deeper into this. We believe that other people have minds or conscious states similar to our own, even though we can't directly observe those minds. We can't see or touch thoughts or feelings, but we infer their existence from the way people act, from the words they say, from the emotions they display. In a similar vein, belief in God, Plantinga argues, is not directly supported by empirical evidence either. We can't see or touch God. Yet we infer God's existence from certain experiences or observations in the world, from the beauty and complexity of nature, from the sense of morality innate in us, from the deep-seated longing for something beyond the physical world. This analogy challenges the assumption that only empirically verifiable beliefs are rational. If we were to reject belief in God due to a lack of empirical evidence, we'd also have to reject belief in other minds for the same reason. And that, Plantinga suggests, would lead us down a path of radical skepticism about the external world, a path that's not only intellectually unsatisfying but also practically unsustainable. So, Plantinga concludes, just as belief in other minds is considered rational, so should belief in God. Both beliefs, he argues, are fundamental. Both are based not on direct empirical evidence but on inferential reasoning, and both, therefore, can be rationally justified. As we can see, belief in God and belief in other minds are not so different after all. Both are fundamental to our understanding of the world, and both can be rationally justified even without direct empirical evidence. Plantinga's work in God and Other Minds has left a lasting impact on the philosophy of religion and epistemology. This seminal work laid the groundwork for Plantinga's later development of Reformed epistemology, where he expanded on the idea that certain fundamental beliefs, including the belief in God, can be accepted rationally without the need for justification by other beliefs. This concept challenged traditional philosophical thought and invited broader discussions on the nature of faith, the possibility of religious knowledge, and the role of reason in religion. The ripple effects of Plantinga's arguments are seen in contemporary theology and Christian apologetics, demonstrating the enduring influence of his work. His arguments invite us to view our beliefs not as isolated entities, but as interconnected components of a larger, cohesive worldview. As we have seen, the belief in God, like the belief in other minds, is not a leap into the irrational, but a step towards a deeper understanding of our world and ourselves.